We've come a long way since eeveegrove's announcement, from the pre-release where the card seemed a little lackluster to day one where we thought Snorlax EX was going to be an unstoppable wall, to today where Sylveon EX has taken over the entire game. Welcome to the Meta Report. My name's AustyLaVista, and today we're going to be recapping which decks are seeing the most success in the biggest Pokemon TCG Pocket tournaments. Ursi Day's Pocket Weekly 34 took place over the weekend, with over 500 players duking it out for the top. The most common card we saw was Sylveon EX. Here's a percentage of the decks that made it into top cut. As you can see, Sylveon EX Greninja consisted of over a third of the total alone. Combined with Charizard EX, Flareon EX, Garchomp EX, Magnezone, and the one-off decks, Sylveon EX was used in over a whopping 70% of the top cut decks, showing its mainstay power of the fabled Draw 2. Consistency is key, and Sylveon EX does this in spades by thinning out your deck as fast as possible, which is why it's featured in so many Stage 2 decks. Even with the sheer amount of popularity we've seen from this card, it's all reliable that actually made off with a first place finish. Darkrai Giratina is at it again, one of the few decks left relying solely on basics. The strength of Giratina is its incredible energy battery. Being able to use broken space below to generate a psychic energy, even if you're going first, is always incredible. Combine it with Darkrai's pot shots using Nightmare Aura, and you have quite the dynamic duo. With no rare candy or evolution cards defined, this frees up space for 16 spots to fill up with support. Red and Guzma are especially useful against Sylveon EX, allowing you to one-shot it even with a giant cape equipped by using Giratina's attack in tandem with Darkrai's ability. But it can also help with cards like Garchomp EX and even Charizard if you've already dealt 20 damage prior with Rocky Helmet or Darkrai. Red Card and Mars are especially useful for all the huge hands you'll be encountering through Sylveon EX and are pivotal for slowing down all evolution decks. The huge shocker we saw over the weekend was Solgaleo EX, with only one of its kind getting to top cut and landing a second place finish. Traditionally, Solgaleo EX is partnered with Shiinotic, since its 2 energy retreat costs not being an issue due to Rising Road, putting the legendary into the active spot for free. But when you add the most popular card into the deck, your consistency will go through the roof. While Shiinotic focused on finding Pokemon cards through its ability to help thin out the deck, there was more success with Sylveon's Happy Ribbon, giving the deck an ability to draw rare candy even faster. We also see a replacement of the Stage 1 altogether and instead add in a Magnezone as a backup attacker in case the deck fails to find its evolution. This card can deal 100 damage to Sylveon due to having an ability and being super effective, but the main reason this mon is in the deck is to make sure that Oricorio is not unbeatable, since it can one-shot it. Another cool tool that has entered the meta is Leftovers, which negates Solgaleo's debuff upon attacking with Soulbreaker, where the lion eats 10 damage each time it attacks. Leftovers recover 10 HP every turn, which can help with keeping it at a full 180 HP, preventing one-shots from cards like Charizard EX, who can deal 170 to it. I wouldn't be shocked if we start seeing this deck pop up even more in the future. The most popular deck by far, Sylveon EX Greninja, saw quite a variety in their decks. While each player in the top 10 had a consistent 2-2 Sylveon line, 2-0-2 Greninja line, 1 Giratina, 2 Rare Candy, 2 Professor's Research, 2 Pokeball, and 1 Giant Cape. The rest of the cards changed based on preference. Having both Mars and Red Card to combat evolution decks was common, while some players opted for a Neono instead of a Red Card, which not only messes with the opponent's hands, but helps fix one's own bricked hand if it happens. Others wanted to swap in Irida for some much needed healing, swapping out either one of their 2 Cyrus or their Soul Mars card respectfully. The top placing deck that got 3rd place kept it simple with a 2 Cyrus, 1 Mars, 1 Red Card. Greninja pairs so well with Cyrus due to its ability Water Shuriken, and having increased odds of pulling a card to rip a bench to the front is incredibly strong, let alone being able to do it twice in one game. Speaking of incredibly strong, Charizard EX showed up in spades, being the second most popular deck with an almost 20% appearance rate. Every deck contained a 2-0-2 Charizard line, alongside 2 Rare Candy, with a 2-2 Sylveon line, and a Flareon to cover for cards like Oricorio that ignore EX damage. Other staples include Sabrina, Mars, and Lily. With not much wiggle room for customization, some players gave up a second Lily for more consistency with finding the right cards using Pokemon communication. And while most decks contained a Giant Cape to help with Sylveon surviving one-shots, some decks opted for a potion instead to help with healing from a Greninja Water Shuriken, or to stack on top of a Lily for an 80 HP heal in one turn. This deck was good at taking down Flareon Leafeon EX and made Buzzwole borderline unplayable, and a slightly positive win percentage versus the #1 popular deck, Sylveon Greninja, so a pretty good spread all around. However, it did lose a little to Silvally Oricorio over the weekend. Having the ability to shut down Charizard with Oricorio is its winning boon, while dishing out quick damage with the Silvally line. Any deck containing the Type Null line has notoriously struggled with going first, since you lose the ability to dish out 100 damage by your next turn if the deck were going second instead. Zeraora offsets this by using Thunderclap Flash, allowing a 50 damage hit by the next turn without needing any supporter or evolutions to get going. Mix this with Dawn to transfer that energy to another card and you have yourself a pretty good battery for Oricorio or Silvally. Lots of supporters are key for getting 100 damage consistently or even 110 with Giovanni, which is great for rival Silvally decks due to its one-shot nature. The Evolution deck had a pretty good showing too, using EVE-EX in order to have 4 different basics that can evolve into any evolution you want. Nearly every deck ran 2 Flareon EX, 2 Leafeon EX, 1 Sylveon EX, and 1 Leafeon. Running only Fire Energy, the deck relies on Forest Breath to give Grass Energy to the normal Leafeon to do a quick 90 damage against cards like Oricorio. However, the highest deck placement that reached top 16 was the only Evolution player in the top cut to run normal Flareon over Leafeon instead. While this card required 3 energy and didn't get the added boost from Forest Breath, this made it not reliant on set ability and could slowly charge Fire Energy in the background over time. Flamethrower also discards a Fire Energy, which synergized well with Flareon EX's Combust ability that required already discarded Fire Energy to attach. Red and EV Bag are also used to cast a wide range of potential damage the opponent always has to be on the lookout for. Constantly wondering if Leafeon EX is going to hit for 70 or combine all 3 and do 110 instead will be an added mental stack the opposing player will have to keep an eye out for. Sylveon EX continues to be a mainstay with stage 3 decks, especially with those that contain 2 different lines like Garchomp Rampardos. Most decks went with a 2-1-2 Garchomp EX line with the occasional 2-0-2 while adding an Iono, but all others kept the 2 Skull Fossil, 1 Cranidos, 2 Rampardos, and the 1-1 Sylveon line. 2 Lilies for additional healing and you're on your way for a sturdy deck. The main fear will always be a Skull Fossil just sitting on the bench, wondering if a rare candy Rampardos is about to hit next turn for 130 damage due to its 1 energy cost attack. Pretty standard stuff, goes pretty even with Charizard and Sylveon Greninja, not much to say about this one. It's cool to see the return of old cards due to Sylveon helping with consistency though. A deck that has been struggling to find its footing since eeveegrove's release is Buzzwole EX. With only 2 decks in top cut and the highest place being 25th, this card has fallen off since its dominant performance in Extra Dimensional Crisis. Nothing from the newest expansions has been added, as the deck pretty much requires Lusamine, Erica, and Cyrus to function. Cyrus stacks extremely well with Pheromosa for sniping bench Pokemon, Lusamine for going from 0 to 3 energy in one go for Big Beat or Celesteela, while Erica and Leaf Cape help with survivability. Having 2 red cards is an interesting strategy since by the time the opponent has prize points collected to make Mars more useful, you need to be using other supporters like Lusamine to guarantee attacks instead, leaving very little room for this card to be played. Another variant saw a Kartana added for early game pressure at the cost of 1 Leaf Cape, as well as going back to the traditional 1 Mars, 1 red card. Unfortunately, this deck struggles a little against Sylveon and Greninja, while becoming practically obsolete due to its abysmal 17% win rate versus Charizard EX. With so many Charizards running rampant, this deck will continue to remain dormant until its counter starts to emerge against the Firestarter. One of those counters might rise with Sylveon EX Magnezone, where Tapu Lele eats Charizard alive once it's online due to its damage scaling with how much energy is attached. Another version of the deck uses Oricorio, which is also a great wall to have against any EX out there to begin with. The best part of this deck is that Sylveon is its sole 2 prize point reward, making it pretty common for players to have to knock out 3 different Pokemon. Add in Giant Cape to prevent one-shots against Sylveon and Magnezone, and this becomes a recipe for disaster against Charizard. I also want to give a shout out to the one single Tapu Koko Arceus deck that made top cut. While it had a slight disadvantage against Sylveon Greninja as well as Silvally Oricorio, this deck was practically designed to eat Charizard alive. A huge 90% win rate over the course of the tournament makes it almost unlosable. Using Oricorio to stall out and deal chip damage while you build enough energy for Arceus to finish off the carry makes this deck extremely powerful, while also having the ability to transfer energy around with Electrical Cord and Dawn makes it feel like a blockbuster rental. There's a small chance we might see more of these decks pop up if Charizard continues to appear. The win rate is just too large to ignore for now. And that's the meta report from this past weekend. If you liked the video, go and throw a like and subscribe my ways. It really helps my channel out. I put a lot of work into my videos to make sure that they're high quality, so any help is appreciated. My name is AustyLaVista, and I'll see you all next time.